Alright everyone, hello, my name is Nettie. This is just a tip. Not advice, definitely not wisdom, just a tip or two. This podcast exists because I have lots of thoughts and ideas, and instead of texting my friends like a normal person, I decided to record them and hope someone else goes, oh, same. I'm not here to fix you, just here to keep you company for like 10 minutes while you exist. Pull up a chair, relax, and join me for a few. There's a reason some stews taste like they came out of a restaurant kitchen, and others taste like someone just threw ingredients into hot water and hoped for the best. And the weird part, the difference usually isn't better ingredients. It's one small step that a lot of people skip because they're in a hurry. And today's tip comes from a Puerto Rican chicken stew that proves exactly why that step matters. Today's tip comes from a dish that somehow tastes like someone's grandmother spent all afternoon cooking it, even though it actually comes together in about an hour or two. It's called polo guisado, a Puerto Rican chicken stew that's comforting, hearty, and packed with flavor. And when I started looking at recipes for it, something interesting stood out to me. The ingredients are simple, nothing fancy. Chicken, vegetables, broth, seasoning. But the way the flavor builds, how it builds, that's where the magic happens. The first step is preparing the chicken. I'm going to start with chicken thighs, which are perfect for stew because they stay juicy and tender even after simmering for quite a while. The first step is drying them with paper towel. It may seem like a tiny detail, but it matters more than you'd think. If the outside of the chicken is too wet, it tends to steam instead of brown. Browning is where we're about to start building flavor. Once the chicken is dry, cut it into chunky pieces, not tiny cubes. You want ones that can hold their shape as they're cooking. Then season the chicken with adobo. If you've never used adobo before, it's basically an all-purpose seasoning blend that contains salt, garlic powder, onion powder, oregano, pepper, etc. Simple but really flavorful. But now the chicken is ready for the pot. You're going to heat a Dutch oven or a heavy pot over medium-high heat and add a little cooking oil. Once the oil is hot, add the chicken pieces in a single layer. And now comes the moment where a lot of people accidentally sabotage themselves, because the instinct is to keep poking the chicken. Flip it, move it, check it, flip it again. But the chicken is trying to do something important right now. It's trying to brown. If you can keep moving it around, it never gets the chance to develop that golden color. So let it sit for a minute. Let it sizzle, do its thing. Eventually the outside turns beautifully golden and little brown bits start forming on the bottom of the pan. At this point, you remove the chicken and set it aside. And I know that feels strange because we're making a stew. Why are we taking the chicken? But those brown bits left behind in the pot are about to flavor everything else that goes in and start building the layers that we know and love in most stews. Next, we're going to build the aromatic base. When the chicken is removed, you're going to dice an onion and add to the pot. The onions going to start cooking in leftover oil and chicken drippings, and as they soften, they start loosening those brown bits stuck to the bottom. Those bits are called fond, which is just a fancy cooking word for the really good stuff stuck to the pot. Give the onion a couple minutes until they become soft and translucent. Then you add garlic and cook for another minute. Already the kitchen should start smelling incredible. Now comes the ingredient that really defines this dish and takes it from a regular chicken stew to a Puerto Rican chicken stew. Sofrito. Sofrito is a blended mixture of vegetables and herbs that forms a flavor base for most Caribbean and Latin dishes that are well known. It's bright, aromatic, and packed with flavor. And when it cooks and hits the pot, it starts cooking with the onions and garlic, and something amazing happens. Your kitchen suddenly smells like someone who actually knows what they're doing in their kitchen lives there. Let the sofrito cook for a couple minutes so its flavor deepens and blends with the aromatics. Now, if you can't find pre-made sofrito at the store, or you can't find most of the ingredients, you can make a very simple, easy version that works in almost everything that you can think of. All you need is one green bell pepper, a small onion, several cloves of garlic, a handful of cilantro, and a little olive oil. Optionally, you can throw in a serrano pepper or a jalapeno, whatever tickles your fancy. Roughly chop everything, then toss it into a blender or food processor and pulse until it becomes a green, chunky paste. That's it. You can keep it in the fridge for about a week or freeze it in small portions so you're always ready to add some to whatever you're cooking. You'll find any excuse to add it to rice, beans, soups, stews. I've even put it on pizza. It was not bad. Now you're going to add tomato sauce to the pot. What the tomato sauce is going to do is it's going to mix with the sofrito and the onions and the garlic and forming the real base of the stew. You let it cook for a couple minutes until it thickens slightly and starts bubbling. Next, you're going to add sazon seasoning, dried oregano, and bay leaves. Sazon is another seasoning blend used in many Latin dishes, often including ingredients like coriander, cumin, garlic, and annatto, which gives it a warm golden color to all those dishes. At this stage, the pot is already layered with flavors, but we're not done yet. Now we add the vegetables that will cook into the stew. Potatoes go first, cut into chunks so they can soak up the broth, but this is also a place where you can get a little flexible. A lot of stews like this welcome other root vegetables too, like turnips or rutabaga, and rutabagas actually are pretty common in Puerto Rican cooking, which I didn't realize until I started digging into recipes and food traditions. It's one of those vegetables that doesn't get a lot of attention anymore, but it has a really nice earthy sweetness when it cooks down into soups and stews. And honestly, depending on where you live, like up here in the UP, it might even feel familiar to you. Where I'm at in the Midwest, rutabaga shows up in a lot of cold weather cooking. Hearty soups, roasted root vegetables, and a dish I may not be fond of, but I know there's plenty of people who are, pasties. It's a little common UP tradition. So if you happen to have any rutabagas in the kitchen, you can absolutely swap some of those potatoes for it, or add a few chunks into the stew. It'll soak up the broth with the potatoes and soften as it cooks, and it adds another layer of flavor. That's one thing I think that I really like about dishes like this. Even though it comes from a specific place, a specific tradition, there's still room to adapt it with ingredients that might already be part of your own local cooking. Similar to our recipe from last week, the stroganoff. It's endured because it adapts. Next we add carrots, which adds a little sweetness and color. Rainbow are my favorite variety. In mine I like to add it in a sweet corn, usually a frozen bag, which is easy. And then something that might surprise people, green olives. When I first saw olives in a chicken stew, I had a moment of skepticism. But that little salty bite cuts through the richness of the stew in a way that somehow makes everything feel perfectly balanced. Finally, the part you've been waiting for, you pour in chicken stock, and as that hits the pot, it loosens the last little bits that were stuck to the bottom and pulls everything together. We're going to bring the stew up to a gentle boil. At this point, we are going to be going to the simmer step. Return your brown chicken to the pot, lower the heat, and cover and let everything simmer together. This is the moment where cooking becomes less active and more atmospheric. Stew bubbles gently, the kitchen slowly fills with amazing aromas. Occasionally you'll come and check and lift the lid and, yep, still stew. After about 40 to 50 minutes, the chicken becomes tender and the vegetables are perfectly soft. At this point, if your stew is a little too thin for your liking, you can take a 1-to-1 or a 1-to-2 ratio of cornstarch to water, mix into a slurry, add it in, bring it back to a boil, and it'll thicken as fast as you can say soup. Now this is the point where I start thinking about something that might actually be a cooking conspiracy. You know how everyone says their grandma's cooking tastes better than anyone else's, but I don't think it's the secret ingredients that people think it is. I think grandmas just understood something about cooking that the rest of us rushed through. They let things brown. They let flavors build. They didn't panic and start stirring every 30 seconds like the food might escape the pot, and because of that, their soups and stews developed deeper flavor. So my conspiracy theory is this. Grandmas didn't necessarily have secret ingredients, they just had patience. And that brings us to the real tip hiding in this recipe. Great stews aren't about throwing everything into a pot all at once. They're about building flavor in layers. Brown the meat first, cook the aromatics, add your flavor base, add the liquid, and a small change that can turn a basic stew into something that tastes like it simmered all day. Patience. So yeah, definitely not wisdom, not advice, just a tip. If your stew tastes a little flat, try building the flavor one layer at a time. Your pot will thank you. I'm Nettie. This has been Just a Tip. Take what you want, leave the rest, and I'll be back, hopefully next week, with an equally appetizing entry. Catch you on the flip side.